In life's journey, we must seek to reflect, learn, and grow. Welcome to the Road to Rediscovery with your host, Aubrey Johnson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Road to Rediscovery. I'm your host, Aubrey Johnson. The Road to Rediscovery is about reflecting on past life lessons to learn and grow from them and to take it to the next level and help others who are struggling through dark times. I am very excited for today's episode because we're going to share with you an update from a previous guest from nearly a year ago. At the time I talked with him, he was 9 weeks in recovery, I believe, from overcoming COVID-19. And this was back when the pandemic was at its height, where we had people dying in emergency rooms and waiting rooms, and there was a lot of chaos going on, particularly in the first very hyper infected area of New York City, which is where my guest lives and resides. And he is a comedian. He shared with us how he used the power of laughter and comedy to get over this. In addition to other things, support from his wife, from his son, and he is here to give us an update on how things are going nearly a year later. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mr. Bruce Lipsky. Hey, Bruce, how you doing, man? Long time.
Hey, Aubrey, thank you so much. I do appreciate you having me back here. Yes, it has been over a year right now, and
Yeah.
it's as we know, it's interesting times. That's all I have to say. When we first spoke, I had mentioned to you the fact that in mid-March of 2020,
Mhm.
I started feeling ill. And long story short, yes, I tested positive for the COVID disease, and I
Mhm.
went through a series of physicians, medical protocols, vitamin protocols, et cetera, to the point where I was, for lack of a better word, temporarily cured, if there's such a word.
Mhm.
I think I mentioned the last time that, based on how the disease affects people, as we're well aware, there's people who've had the disease, don't even know they had it. There are those who've had the disease and feel sick for a day or two, and just like a cold. Then, as we mentioned earlier, too, is that somebody gets the disease, and next thing you know, they're in the hospital on a ventilator.
Mhm.
My classification is what they call a long hauler. Okay, person gets the disease and has consistent symptoms for over the course of an amount of time.
Mm.
Okay, depending who you talk to, it could be 3 weeks, 6 weeks, or whatever,
Yeah.
are presenting symptoms.
Mhm.
I'm now 13 months and still presenting symptoms.
Oh my
And
goodness.
yeah, so my typical symptoms are headaches, nauseousness, chills, feelings of warmth, trachea constriction, light cough. Um,
Mhm.
I was fortunate, at least in my end of it, that my lung capacity had stayed strong, and nothing as far as pneumonia or things like that affected my lungs. That
Yeah.
was one of the key things to my recovery.
Mm.
Um, but yes, I struggle as what I consider a long haul. There's hundreds of thousands of people out there who are long haulers. And
Mhm.
it's very interesting. In the New York City area, there are what they call long hauler clinics.
Really?
There's one Mount Sinai Hospital, and there's one in Stony Brook Hospital out in Long Island,
Right. Right.
uh, dedicated just to people who've been suffering with this disease over the course of a lengthy time period. That's the good news. The unfortunate news is because when I see my regular doctor on scheduled appointments,
Right.
and he's been doing my antibody testing, and I've had very high antibodies. That's the good news.
Good.
Bad news, I have high antibodies because why? I'm constantly fighting the disease. Why does somebody produce antibodies? The body has a response to a foreign body or object, let's say COVID, and it wants to basically kick the crap out of it and get it out of the system. So
Right.
it creates antibodies, and these antibodies, when you have them, especially at the higher level, what does it do? It produces symptoms. Again, it could
Mhm.
be fever, it could be nauseousness, it could be a lot of different symptoms depending on the individual. And that's one of the unfortunate things with the long haulers is that the symptoms aren't consistent
I
among
see.
two people. Okay.
Okay.
My symptoms are consistent for me over the course of time, but if you ask another long hauler who could have been a marathon runner, it could be someone who's very in shape, Some of
Yeah.
these people can't walk from the bathroom to the bedroom,
Mm.
you know, and
Yeah.
there's no rhyme or reason why. It is a neurological issue. It does affect the brain in different ways. It affects the other systems.
Mhm.
And there's a big question mark. The doctors are saying, we don't know how, why, and when, and where. It affects me this way, and it affects Joe Smith another way. So they developed these clinics,
Yeah.
okay, specifically trying to deal with this. That's the
Mhm.
good news.
Mhm.
But a lot of those clinics, of what I can get out of them, are research based because they're still trying to figure out why, when, and where.
Ah,
The good
okay.
news is I called up one of the clinics and I got an appointment. They said the earliest they can see me is October 25th.
Are they that backlogged?
One clinic's on October 25th. So I said almost in a joking manner, I said to the gentleman who's taking the appointment, I said to be either very optimistic that I'm going to kick these symptoms and I'm going to cancel October 25th, or you're very pessimistic that I'm not going to kick these symptoms and I'm going to keep the appointment.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, it's almost like it's damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But he said,
Yeah.
don't cancel the appointment because if we get a cancellation along the way, you may be in the queue and we'll call you. I kept the appointment, but it's frustrating. And because even if that appointment was tomorrow, all that appointment really is, okay, you're going to meet with a physician and they're going to give you a course of action to see other doctors. You're going to get passed around like an hors d'oeuvre at a bar mitzvah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Because they're going to say, what are your symptoms? What's this? What's that? They're going to send you to the pulmonologist. They're going to send you to the neurologist. They're going to send
Right.
you to the internist. And I don't
Right.
blame them. The doctors, they're overworked, understaffed, and they're basically combating a disease that they're still learning.
Right.
So there's another clinic I called, and they said, we're only in on Wednesdays.
Mhm.
Okay, fine. What's the earliest appointment I get for that? That's early June.
A little
So
better.
a little better, but the idea is, thankfully, I'm not in a position of some of these other long haulers, as I said before, the ones that can only walk from the bedroom to the bathroom barely, or have other symptoms that are so bad. There was just somebody on TV the other day. It breaks your heart to see some of the symptoms he's going through. He
Mm.
gets burning feet every night, and he has to soak his feet for hours at night because
What?
they burn. He had a fever for over 100 days.
You're
I mean,
kidding me.
yeah, no. And so it's, so if you look at the bell-shaped curve of what we call long haulers, I may be in the bottom quadrant of the long haulers who have bad symptoms, but they're not threatening like the other symptoms there. I can still carry on my everyday life,
Yeah,
although I
yeah.
have to cut back. Like even prior to us having this meeting today, what was I doing for an hour? I was wrapped up in a blanket because for some reason, certain time in the evening, I can't say if it's 7 o'clock, whatever it is, I get the chills
Mm.
and feeling of flushness. In the mornings, I tend to have dizziness, not so much dizziness, but lightheadedness, headaches, and nausea. But
My
although
goodness.
why at 6 o'clock this evening I was nauseous.
Yeah, yeah.
And to joke, it's not my wife's cooking. Okay.
Right, right.
All right.
No,
There's nothing to do with that. But
right.
then I have the trachea constriction. When I feel like, I'm not gasping for air, but there's definitely a restriction of airflow.
Gotcha.
But there's not a consistent pattern to say this is going to happen this time, this is going to happen this time. Why has it been worse over the last several weeks? My doctor doesn't know. I was in my doctor's office. He said we can take blood. And one of the ironic things, again, with COVID, for the most part, when you take somebody's blood, it's almost perfect.
Really?
But yeah, there's nothing really out of the ordinary that somebody can say, hey, this guy's got this infection, this guy's got that infection. And my doctor's told me this. And he treats hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of patients with COVID. And he even looked at me and he said, Bruce, I don't know what else I can do for you. Take a
My
Tylenol for your
gosh.
headache? He
Yeah.
said, I don't know what to do. In fact, I had another quandary. Because my antibodies were so high
Mhm.
and I was presenting symptoms, my doctor said, maybe you should hold off on getting the vaccine. Because what is the vaccine going to do? It's going to basically introduce the virus. Well, that's what I say, the live virus. It's going to induce a response by your body as it's fighting the virus.
Mhm.
Okay, it's going to build antibodies. If your antibodies are already high, what's better? And he said, there's nothing like your own antibodies. Okay, that's the good news. On the other side, he said, if you get the vaccination, is that going to exacerbate your symptoms, make it worse? He doesn't know. So he said, hold off for a little bit. And last week or 2 weeks ago, he said to me, Bruce, I think you should get the vaccine.
He did. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So the CDC says those who have had COVID, even those presenting symptoms, should get the vaccine. And there's some research out there that supposedly the Pfizer vaccine has helped those people who are long haulers actually decrease their symptoms.
Wow. That's amazing. And that's
Yes.
great. I've heard about the efficacy of Pfizer, which is what I got my first and second over the
Right.
past month and a half. And the others are good too, but I've just heard like an increased efficacy on the Pfizer, so did you end up getting the vaccine, Bruce?
I'm due next Tuesday for my first injection.
Beautiful.
I was
Beautiful.
supposed to have my first injection about 5 or 6 weeks ago.
Right.
And I was taking my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law was going to be 92 this year. I was taking her down to the
Wow.
Javits Center in New York City.
Yeah.
It's run by the National Guard. Very well
Mhm.
organized. So my doctor said, cancel that appointment. Take your mother-in-law. I took her. In fact, I took her for a second one this past week.
Good.
And he said, now just schedule yourself and just get it done. And that's
Yeah.
it. So, yeah.
Gotcha.
And honestly, I'm nervous
Yeah.
about it because, again, is that going to make my symptoms worse? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. It's a big question. But
Yeah.
if it makes it better, and it gives me more autoimmune protection, because it's not only the COVID-19, it's the other strains or the mutated strains that they're trying to, help the body get used to. If that's
Right. So for you, there's only one way to find out if it's going
exactly,
to work, right?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
And exacerbating the symptoms, I would, if I was in your shoes, I would have the same concern because you already have symptoms from being a long hauler, right?
Right, right.
And we've heard, in the media and by the CDC that there's moderate symptoms or side effects from the vaccine, particularly the second Pfizer, I believe. And so, could that compound on top of your existing symptoms? So let me get this straight, Bruce, because I'm kind of medically inept, to be honest. But you okay, this sounds like a cycle, almost like a vicious cycle. So your antibodies are good, which I grew up in health class. I knew that antibodies are good,
Right, right.
and they increase when they're fighting off something. Okay. Now, what you're saying is yours have increased and have constantly been abundant in antibodies within your body because of the constant symptoms that you're having, but it's causing the symptoms to happen from having so many antibodies. Is that right?
Well, in layman's terms, and again, I'm not a medical professional either.
Hmm.
When your body is fighting a disease, and we'll use COVID because that's what I'm dealing with,
Right.
you produce the antibodies, and there's a process called shedding. Because when the antibodies are beating up the bad guys, the cells die, and the body has to rid them, get them out of the body. That's
Right.
the process what they call shedding.
Okay.
Okay, when you're in the shedding process, you part of that is because you're fighting it, you produce symptoms. Okay,
Mhm.
and the symptoms could vary based on the individual. Hence, my main symptoms, as I mentioned before, are headaches, nauseousness, feelings of flush, chills,
Mhm.
and the trachea constriction.
Right.
Okay, so there's not a rhyme or reason why I get that versus if you had it, you get something else. But there are some consistencies. But when you are shedding and you're fighting this, yes, those symptoms tend to rise a little bit.
Okay.
What makes it rise one day versus the other day? That's the big mystery. Now, how it attaches to the cells and things like that. I was absent in biology that day. I should have attended that class, but too bad I didn't. So I couldn't tell you the real answer behind it. Uh,
Right.
and I kind of make the joke almost, and there's no joking matter with COVID, but I try and interject some of the comedy in there. We have a designer dog at home. I spent thousands of dollars on, and my
Mhm.
wife got this dog because it's hypoallergenic and doesn't shed. Now she's got a husband who's got COVID and he's shedding.
Shedding, right?
But I told her
I like that.
I shed off the top of my head 40 years ago.
There you go. That's right. And here I am now, still shedding.
I'm still shedding, but in a different way. She's gonna put me in the shed. I think. So that's I'm sorry. That's the weird thing about the antibodies, because one of the concerns they had with COVID patients was that, do the antibodies last? And if they do last, do they still have the protection as they did in the beginning?
Okay.
At least in my body, the proof is that my antibodies not only have lasted, they've increased to a relatively high number. I'm close to 90 on my antibody levels. Okay. Normal is zero, basically. If the average person walking off the street, if they never got exposed to COVID, they have zero antibodies. Okay.
Gotcha. Because they have nothing to fight off.
Exactly. They don't have the disease. They're not fighting it. Like how my wife never got the COVID, we don't know. My son got COVID. Yeah. He was the first one to get it.
He did.
He presented symptoms for 2-3 days. In fact, he may be still dealing with some COVID symptoms too. He has this situation where he has difficulty with breathing at certain times of the night.
Yeah.
No rhyme or reason. Mucus production is something. In fact, we were just discussing it before. He's frustrated. He's been to an allergist. He's been to an internist. He's been on different allergy medicines, been this and that. Allergist found nothing wrong. Okay. That's the good news. The bad news, he found nothing wrong. It's the same thing with me with COVID. My doctor, he checks this: liver function, kidney function, trace elements in minerals, red blood cells, white blood cells, everything else, this, and that.
Yeah.
Perfectly within normal. And he can look at this in his chart from the beginning of time when I first presented the symptoms to COVID to when I was in his office 2 weeks ago. And it's a consistent pattern of everything, the blood being perfectly normal. That's the good news, except you do the antibody levels, okay?
Right.
But I wasn't feeling well the last few weeks, so I said to him, could I have gotten reinfected with the COVID? So he took another COVID test. Thankfully, it was negative.
Okay, good.
So, so I'm not contagious, but within my own body, I'm still fighting this battle, which is a good thing. You want your body to fight it.
Yeah.
But it's a very interesting and frustrating struggle because, I still try and maintain my normal activity level, my new normal activity level. Let's put it that way. Right. I'm on my treadmill every day, 40 minutes. I'm doing my upper body exercise, my core exercise, whatever it may be, my leg exercise. So I'm typically doing at least an hour plus a day of exercise. Good. That's been helping me physically and mentally. I started doing my own self-prescribed breathing exercise, and I do some of those, and try and balance out my life with the comedy and other things. But it is frustrating because, sometimes your mind says yes and the body says no.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I'm thinking about the schedule that you hold. I know, you're some years removed, retired. And you're in comedy now. And there's schedules when it comes to certain dates that you've commit to, right? Whether it's in person or virtual. And you don't have any rhyme or reason or pattern as to when these symptoms come on so strong to where you have to say, hey, wait, time out. I better go wrap up in a blanket. These chills are overwhelming, or this nausea, I just can't walk to the car or whatever, So have you had a lot of those types of conflicts kind of come up over?
That's an excellent question. Thankfully, I've been able to override some of that, and maybe it's a mental battle. And we talked about this the last time. COVID is not just a physical battle; it's a mental battle. And you got to figure out a way to balance both of them. Because if on the physical side, you're doing everything you possibly can do to keep yourself as healthy as possible.
Right.
You checked off those boxes. That's great.
Right.
On the mental side, if you let that beat you down, and I mentioned this the first time we talked, what COVID wants you to do is crawl up in a ball and basically give up.
You said that. Yep. I remember.
Yep, I said that. And it's not the first time I've heard, you've heard this probably. It's been told by other people the same thing. You just got that overwhelming feeling. You just don't want to be bothered. Just leave me alone.
Yeah.
But I had to fight that. I still fight it on occasion. Not so bad now because I think I've gotten over that hump. But the comedy, as we mentioned before, is very helpful. One of the things that I find frustrating going forward as things open up in life, comedy clubs have started to open up in New York. Long Island, New Jersey, where
Good.
they're booking shows, live shows, 30% capacity, 25% capacity, 40% capacity,
Right.
depending on what you're talking to. I've
Mm.
been offered opportunities to perform at certain,
Great.
but I've turned it down.
Mm.
I'm not ready physically and even emotionally ready to do that.
Gotcha.
To me, it's not worth a 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 minute set jeopardize my health right now. And maybe it wouldn't be jeopardizing my health, but also I don't see people who would normally support me watching my comedy coming out and watching me right at this juncture.
Yeah.
Because I'm 65 years old. Most of my people are in my age group. Let's face it, that's a higher risk group for COVID. Even
Right.
though most of these people have been vaccinated, they're not running the comedy clubs right now.
Right.
Eventually they will be. So that's a frustrating part for me. My mind says, yes, I want to get out there and do it
Hmm.
because doing Zoom comedy is not the same thing as doing live comedy.
No, it's not.
And I've worked hard over the course of the year to hopefully make my comedy better.
Yeah.
I want to show it to the world that maybe I'm a better comedian now. Again, I'm a low-level comedian compared to, obviously, it's the headlines and things like that. And when clubs are opening up, who are they going to hire right now? They're going to hire the headliners because the headliners are going to put people in the seats. You know,
Right.
Bruce Lipsky is not going to put people in the seats the same way as a headliner on Long Island or New York
Gotcha.
City.
Right.
But I talked to a comedian friend of mine the other day, and he was telling me he did a show in Manhattan,
Hmm.
and they got a great crowd, and the crowd loved it, and it's like catharsis too. If you're a comedian or a performer, and you haven't been on the real stage in a while, and you get out there, and you see a live crowd, even if it's 25% capacity, and you hear that first laughter, you feel validated,
Oh, of course.
as a performer.
Yeah.
And that's an important thing. And so a lot of comedians that I know have been self-devaluated over the course of the year.
Sure.
If you do a Zoom comedy show, all right, even if there's 50 people in the Zoom audience, a lot of times they get muted because of external noise situation.
Right.
You can have your best set out there and you don't hear any laughter. So then you feel like, are you a Zoom comedy bomber?
Right. Right. Right.
And then when you get on the real stage and you've done that set for 3 years, 4 years, and it works all the time, and you're on Zoom and no reaction,
Yeah.
you feel, have you lost your chops, basically? Have I lost
No.
my ability to entertain?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I know a lot of entertainers, a lot of comedians just started doubting themselves and saying, have I lost my comedy touch or my ability to entertain? And
Yeah.
I tend to thrive a little bit more on Zoom because I know right now that's the only platform for me. Zoom. When I say Zoom, I'd say virtual stage, basically.
Sure. Yeah.
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 Zoom,
No,
StreamYard, Google, whatever it may be.
Yep.
Zoom tends to be the go-to for a lot of people. But
Yeah.
again, doing comedy on Zoom is very difficult too because I can tell you I can do a bit or a routine, and if you don't learn how to do comedy on Zoom, you're at a disadvantage because I can tell a joke right now. There's always a 2 or 3 second lag. By the time Aubrey hears it, Aubrey wants to laugh. So if I don't know that's going to be happening, I can be stepping on punchlines. I can be stepping on the laughter. And one of the
Totally.
things in comedy, you certainly don't want to be stepping on punchlines because it's hard enough to get a punchline and people laugh at it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I hear a significant part of comedy, stand-up comedy, is timing. And to your point, Bruce, delivering a set in a virtual space is not is not the same. It requires a special mindset. It requires a special cognizance when it comes to how the people would react to something you say and the timing behind that. And when it comes to like just getting a laugh, right? I mean, whether it's virtual space or in-person space, that's part of the energy, right? That validation, like you mentioned, you got to hear that because that's part of the energy that feeds you as you feed more energy of laughter to the audience. And it's cyclical that way, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, what you give out, you hopefully get back. What you get
Yes.
back, it's like a snowball going down a mountain. It
Right.
just picks up momentum. And I have, I'm not much a physical comedian, but I do some act outs, and it's hard to do act outs on Zoom. when you're talking to somebody like in a conversation, you can do it on stage. I can pick on somebody in the crowd and say, "Oh, hey, congratulations, it's Mary Smith's birthday. Hey,
Yeah.
Mary, I got a story for you. Let me tell you about a story that I know about birthdays. All right, or happy anniversary. Amazing. I just celebrated my 30th anniversary. 30 years of wedded bliss. Oh no, wedded blisters. And then I could
Right.
right. And then I could look right at Aubrey. I could look at Mary or Sally, and you see their head going like this.
Yeah.
Or if
Yeah.
I do a routine, a lot of times I'll start my routine. I said, "Oh, guys, I just turned 65 years old." Man, I looked in the mirror. I looked like a rusted old Buick. And I look at a guy. Oh, you could probably understand. He looked like you're from the same generation. And the guy gives a yes over there. And then you see somebody, a younger person who's laughing in the corner. Say, "Oh, wait a second. What are you laughing about?" I mean, this could all be yours. In 20 years, you're going to look in the mirror. You're going to look like a rusted old Prius.
Yeah, right, Prius. Yeah, I got you.
So again, it's the physical interaction with the audience that you don't get on Zoom. I can do a Zoom show and I can see 6 or 8 faces on top here, and I can see Aubrey over here. So, "Oh, Aubrey, I see. Aubrey just mentioned the fact that because beforehand we were still talking. Oh, you're from Texas. Oh, Texas. Oh, I remember when the first time I was in Texas on a business meeting. I can do that. Or another comedian may say, "Oh yeah, young comedians. Oh, I talked about my high school days. Oh, let me tell you a story about my high school days."
Right.
Again, my thing that I find best is I can interact with the crowd.
Yeah.
I'm learning better to interact with a Zoom crowd, but it's certainly not the same.
No, it's not the same. And you're keying in to keep that momentum going. It sounds like you're also keying in on nonverbal gestures
Exactly.
from the audience to keep that momentum
Of
going.
course,
Otherwise,
right. Because you may ask the question, well, how many people grew up in New York City? I know they say, "Hey, oh, fantastic." Let me tell you, I grew up in New York City, and I got a story for you that you're probably never going to believe. When I was in high school, we had to do swimming, but we had to do naked swimming. And all of a sudden, people go, "Oh my God, naked swimming! This guy's he's pulling my leg." No. Let me explain it to you. And I'll explain the story to these people. And it's like, holy cow, this guy's not pulling my leg. And I'm trying to interject that story, but in a funny way.
I got you.
But in Zoom, one of the neat things about Zoom comedy is that I can interact with people all over the world. So I'm meeting people from all different cultures. And I've learned with my comedy to sort of work with that.
Gotcha.
For example, there are certain words, and I was talking about the nude swimming joke. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is actually a true story. We had to do naked swimming in high school. And I have a line that I say, "Well, thank God woodworking wasn't run that way." I say,
Right.
but basically I say for the United States crowd, I say, "Thank God woodshop wasn't run that way."
Woodshop. Right. Yeah.
But if I'm in the UK or overseas, I'll say, "Thankfully woodworking was not run that way." And I get a good response. Because again, I've learned to play that crowd a little bit differently.
Yes.
And just they also look at me as an anomaly also. 65-year-old Jewish guy trying to do comedy with 20 somethings Brits or whoever. So I'm sort of like a novelty for these people, which is great. I love it. Because I feel I fit in with everybody. Everybody's got a story.
They sure do, man.
And hopefully with comedy, especially, if you can take that story, embellish that story, make it enjoyable, but also make it funny.
Yes.
One of the things that I think has helped me evolve with my comedy over the course of the year is that I'm trying to write a little differently. Also, one of the things I'm doing is that I've been doing some variety shows on a monthly basis. And unfortunately, this month is the last one because they're going live. It's from California. But with Zoom, it's been great. They had monthly themes. For example, it could be New Year's theme. It could be Valentine's Day theme, St. Patty's Day theme.
Right.
Okay. The next theme they have is Off to the Sunset, Western theme.
Okay.
So what I've done is I've tried writing to those themes, which I'd never done before. So taking real stories and trying to make them funny to adapt to whatever the holiday is or the occasion is. And it's just changed the way I've been writing comedy lately, besides, because I'm like a setup punchline type of guy. I've been described as a Rodney Dangerfield or some of those type. I'm not Rodney Dangerfield, and no way. But that type of setup punchline. Nothing about my mother. one thing about my wife, or even like, some of the old Borscht Belt comedians from, any
Right.
Youngman types,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and so I did a variety show a couple of months ago, and I got on there. It was Valentine's Day,
Hmm.
and I said, when I got up there, I said, just want to let you know, the musicians here are fantastic musicians, but we have people playing the cello, we got people playing the guitar, we got people playing the piano, we got singers. Everybody has their own style, and within that style, there are styles. Two guitar players play guitar totally differently.
Right.
As I said, you're used to hearing me do a lot of comedy that I do set up punchline, but there are alternate forms of comedy as well. And I said, tonight I'm going out of my comfort zone and I'm doing more story-based comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of set it up that way. And I talked about how I first met my wife
Hmm.
and that whole thing. And from there, how we first dated. And then eventually we got together more serious and some of the antics and stuff that we went through, okay, to a skiing trip that we took.
Right.
And I put everything together in like 6, 7, 8 minutes, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And in between, I try to interject jokes.
Gotcha.
That some was obviously true.
Hmm.
First met my wife, and she said, "I'll give you 30 minutes on the clock." It was a blind date. I said, "Is this a job interview?" And it turned out to be a job interview for a
It
husband.
did. Right. For a husband. Yeah.
But then again, just the commonality we had. Our birthday is January 27th. Her
Right.
sister January 29th. My
Right.
birthday is January 28th.
My sister's birthday is January 27th.
So
Wow.
what's the chances of 27, 28, and 29th?
Amazing.
And she
No.
thought I was
Yeah.
pulling her leg. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that was the only time on the first date that I had to pull my wallet out twice, to show my
Right.
driver's license and take the cash out to pay for it. But and then it evolved into a story. It was a story that had humor to it.
Yeah.
At the same point, it was a Valentine's Day story. So I got a different level of appreciation from the crowd after.
Yes.
It wasn't like bent over comedy with hysterical smiles, but it
Right.
was one story. It was a clean story,
Yeah.
and it had comedy within it. So
So let me ask you this then, Bruce. Um, First off, I really gotta commend you for stepping out of your comfort zone to, I guess, adjust or modify the flavor of your delivery, and make it story based. Do you feel that this delivery came across as more conversational versus set up punchline, or yeah?
that's a great point. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
See, one of the uh, criticisms that some people have of my comedy is that they like my writing, I think the structure is good, everything else like that. They like my delivery and stuff. But if I go for a long set,
Yeah.
a 20-minute set or longer, I sometimes get stuck in a cadence pattern where it almost
Sure.
becomes predictable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because in my head, I want to bang you for 20 minutes of straight jokes. And
Yes.
after the audience is like this, you know,
Right.
it's overkill. It's
Yeah.
like enough
Yeah.
already. Slow down, change your cadences and stuff. I'm
Yeah.
really trying to adjust and work on those. That's why these stories are good because they do break it up nicely.
Yes.
And
I got
that's
you.
again the disadvantage of a Zoom situation. If
Yeah.
you're in a live club, totally different story. Like I just recently did St. Patrick's Day. I wrote something. I'm not
Hmm.
Irish, but I did some research. And I found out some commonalities between Americans and Irish, and one of them has to do with celebrating birthdays.
Hmm.
How the Americans celebrate a birthday, typically, okay, if it's Aubrey's birthday, okay, congratulations, Aubrey, we have a cake, blow it out. Are you one? Are you two? Are you three? Oh, are you eight? Congratulations, Aubrey's birthday.
Yeah.
In Ireland, they do it totally differently. They'll have a cake, they'll blow out the candles, but they have something called bumping, bumping,
Yeah.
where they actually take the child by the legs. Are you one? And they bang their head on the ground. Are you two?
Oh
Are
my
you three?
goodness.
Are you
Wow.
still conscious?
Yeah. Are you still conscious? Yeah. Right.
So I wrote a routine to that. So that
Uh-huh.
was for St. Patty's Day. But just think about this. It was specifically wrote for that.
Yep.
But now let's say I'm in the club.
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations, Aubrey's birthday. Fantastic. Congratulations, Aubrey. I have a great story to tell you. I'm sure you celebrated your birthday, you had cake and candles and blah, blah, blah. One. I know I have an Irish friend who celebrates his birthday totally differently. Now all of a sudden you got Irish people in the crowd. That's all. Is anybody Irish in the crowd? Yeah, hey, whatever it
Right,
is.
right.
So suddenly you've got them on your side.
Yep.
You've got the curiosity of Aubrey saying, "Well, how do they celebrate their birthdays differently?" And
Right.
that's
Peaked
the
interest.
offshoot. Exactly. That's the
Yeah,
offshoot of doing writing that way.
I
Or
see.
like I wrote because with the Valentine's Day, it was a skiing story.
Yes.
Oh, it's okay. Maybe I won't say that in the summertime, but now I'm working on something of this Western theme. Okay, and
Ah.
the Western theme, and I turned out this again. This I try and bring truth to it. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
you embellish the truth and make it
Mm-hmm.
so it's funny, but also something that people really can kind of like a magnet. You can bring them in.
I gotcha. 100%, man. So we're talking your writings, you're making very relative and relevant when it comes to the time of year, when it comes to knowing who your audience is, and the research that you're doing. That is huge, man. So I was remembering what you told me last year and what kept you steadfast in staying the course during the hardest parts of COVID that you've had to endure. And so now that you're past that and past the 9 week recovery, but you're still a long hauler and you're still having these symptoms or these side effects or symptoms. Um, um, what additional or new things are you doing to to s- to stay fresh, to stay relevant, to stay the course, and not be down and out? It sounds like writing in this new fashion is one of those ways.
Yeah, that's a great point too. That's excellent point because yes, I try to keep myself as motivated as possible. I'm
Yes,
still doing some writing classes. I'm still doing as many Zoom mics as I can, getting on some shows,
good.
networking with people. I've always been a very good networker.
Yes,
Um, and it's for many reasons. One is because I like meeting people. I like being helped by other people. I like helping people. And I've been fortunate enough to help some people with their writing, and they've helped me with my writing. I like to give back, as much as
yes,
possible. People have been very kind to me. They've been supportive to me. And so I've always wanted to give back and maybe even more. Um, yeah, trying to stay as fresh as possible, trying to be relevant. When I say relevant, to the point where, I'm respected for what I do
yes,
and act in a manner that demands that respect. Don't be an idiot. Be respectful. Show up on
right,
time. Whatever it may be. Don't diss the venue. If they say it's a clean set, be clean. You know,
right,
I've
right.
been on some shows where they say it's a clean set. Next thing you know, these people are throwing out f bombs and doing things,
Yeah,
talking about body parts they shouldn't be
yeah,
talking about, and it's like I cringe because that's not respecting the venue. And
no,
getting a reputation is all you have. I don't have to be the funniest comedian. But if you respect me for being who I am, there's a better chance that Aubrey's going to put me on his show than somebody else who doesn't respect what Aubrey brings to the table.
absolutely, absolutely. So, Bruce, man,
Yeah. So
you
I
bring.
think that's been helpful to me. But like you said before
Mhm.
about the writing, if I if I can bring in something relevant that people can say, yeah, afterwards they say, oh, that was a nice story. It
Yeah,
had it had an ending to it, a beginning and an end to it, but there was
right.
some humor interjected to it. But I like the
Yes,
story where people are bent over laughing the whole time. Absolutely. And maybe
sure.
I'll get to that point.
Yeah,
When you write a bit or a joke, I've been writing this theme now on this Western theme for several weeks.
yeah.
Uh, I'll be performing this a week from Saturday. So I still have almost a week and a half plus to get this down to the point where I'm happy with it, but also have it memorized. But memorized, when I say memorized, not memorized like I'm reading it off paper, but
Yeah.
memorized in my head enough that I can get out there and say, oh, yeah, oh, we have the Western theme tonight. This is fantastic. Let me just tell you about a story about me. I remember the times when I spent my summer times with my grandparents. We stayed in a place called a bungalow colony. You may not know what a bungalow colony is. Well, it's a collection of huts and basically it's plywood cabins, really cheap. All you had was a 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, and a kitchen. You know? But to make it sound really exotic, they called them bungalows. They
Right,
just
right.
probably could have called them, shacks for that matter. You know,
Sure.
if you sneeze, they'd blow over.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but then I bring in the fact that when we stayed at this bungalow colony, we had these really crappy amenities there. The pool with the green slimy water, the rusted out swing set,
Right.
and all the other great amenities,
Great amenity.
wasp bees and poison ivy, So
How's
you
that
try,
for amenities,
and then you
right?
bring that in, and then you have a lot of people in the audience, especially if you're talking to senior citizens or you're doing a library crowd, or
Yeah.
just it's summertime. People say, gee, I went to a bungalow crowd. It may
Yeah.
not have been called a bungalow crowd. Maybe you went to a summer camp. All right, you stayed in a crappy cabin there. Right? All right, the walls were so thin. You can hear the person next door snoring or sneezing or whatever it is.
That's
So
right.
everybody has an experience that maybe it's not the exact same experience, but
Right.
now the whole thing is drawing them in,
Yes.
something of interest, something that's enjoyable, something that's hopefully funny too.
Yes.
But
Yes.
then the key thing to this, because it's a Western theme, and this is the guy's honest truth. I stayed at a bungalow colony one year
Mm-hmm.
that bordered a theme park, and the theme park was called Cimarron City.
Mm.
And Cimarron City was the largest Western theme park on the East Coast.
Really?
And all that separated me from that was a barbed wire fence. Okay.
Wow.
And during the day, while I'm playing in the green slimy water, I can hear the guns going off, or the screaming, or the yelling, or whatever, all the action going on there. But my world here, Cimarron City here. Okay. So now my job as a comedian, because it's a true story, bring myself into Cimarron City, set it up that way, hopefully with some funny stuff,
Right.
get myself into Cimarron City,
Right.
hopefully bring funny stuff there,
Yeah.
get myself out of Cimarron City, hopefully with some funny stuff.
Right.
All
Gotcha.
right. But at the same point, try and be engaging. You may not know what Cimarron City is, but Cimarron City, wow, Cimarron's Western theme park. Okay. What could possibly go? You've been to theme parks before.
Yeah.
Been to Disney, you've been to Disney, wherever you may have been,
Right.
wherever it may have been. So you say theme park, Western theme park. What do you think about? Old Western town, cowboys, Indians.
Yep.
All right. Except these Indians, they didn't look like Indians. They had Brooklyn accents.
Right.
And they wear Nike sneakers, instead of moccasins.
Sure.
So again, try and bring the funny into it. These cowboys weren't wearing 10-gallon hats. They were wearing New York Yankee caps.
Yeah. Yankee caps. Right.
And eating Nathan's hot dogs. So again, especially if I'm doing a New York City crowd, because a lot of people, again, they can say, well, that's where you're trying to inject the funny.
Well, it's relative, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, it's relative. So Bruce, let's say, let's fast forward. I'm going to throw an arbitrary number out there. Okay. Let's fast forward 6 months. Okay. And 6 months from now, you're getting calls to come to, certain comedy clubs and do, openings, open for some headliners and so forth. And let's say you're on the better end of this whole symptom kick that you're having now after the vaccinations. So your mind and your heart wants to do it. You want to go to those live shows, and now your body's feeling better to where you can. My question to you is, what does Bruce Lipsky have to do to make himself emotionally ready after over a year and a half of being virtual and remote to do that first live show?
Wow. Very poignant question. Yes. Excellent thing. Yes. I have to be in a position where I don't know if I'm going to get rid of these symptoms.
Okay.
Right. I have to be in a position to accept that if this is where I am, my symptoms, and I can still carry on my normal activities for the most part, and the clubs have opened up in a way that I feel safe.
Yes.
For example, I have a friend who just did a show in the club, and he got there, and things that were promised to him that were supposed to be COVID ready were not. For example, there was no shield between him and the audience. There was some other situation. So he got there and he felt very funny about performing.
Sure.
Then there's other clubs where they have hand sanitizer, they got the shield, people are socially distanced, they have the microphone covers, and they've done everything right. If we can get to that point that we don't have a club owner that's not greedy and understands truly what it means to have safe protocols.
Right.
And Bruce is feeling better. He's got his vaccinations, and we feel that the city or wherever towns that I'll be performing in are not on the rise in COVID.
Yeah.
Then Bruce Lipsky will feel comfortable getting on stage.
Gotcha.
For example, one of my bucket lists when I first started going to comedy was to play Dangerfield. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I did that. I got that. Unfortunately, Dangerfield's closed during COVID. I don't
Right.
think it's opening up. My number two bucket list was to perform at casinos. One of the casinos up in Mohegan Sun, which is up in Connecticut, a
Okay.
popular casino, or in Atlantic City.
Right.
I got offered to perform at one of the casinos up in Connecticut. Not because I'm the best comedian in the world, but they're looking for comedians now. They want people
Sure.
to bring people. I'm still at a stage they want me to bring people because they got to fill seats.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do it for a couple of reasons. One, I wasn't COVID ready.
Right.
Even though if they only 30% capacity, even if they had the best situation, but they had screens and covers, and this and that, I wasn't ready to do that. A couple of reasons. One is that I didn't see my people coming out to see me. Also, it was a Thursday night. And for me to drive 2.5 hours to go there to do 7 minutes of comedy, to me, in normal times, I would have grabbed it because that's one of my bucket lists. But given the COVID and this other situation, it didn't seem that the risk reward ratio was not there.
Right.
And the answer to the question is, I don't know what that risk reward ratio is right now, but if it's not balanced, then I can't do comedy live, or I won't do comedy for not only my sake, but also the people that would want to come see me, or anybody else for that matter. I wouldn't want, but a friend of mine does a lot of outdoor venues. He said it's great, So that's comedy is evolving in different ways, and maybe there'll be more opportunities on Zoom. I'm trying to get the best I can to be on Zoom. So maybe I've had paid shows on Zoom, not a lot of money, but you're still getting some money. And so it validates some of the comedy. But again, as clubs start to open up more, you're going to see just a different way of doing comedy because you have no choice. You got to be used to being in a room that has 30%, 40% capacity. And the clubs sustain themselves at that level.
Yeah, I don't know how clubs sustain themselves at that, but you know what? It's a heck of a lot easier to sustain at 30, 40% capacity than zero capacity.
Exactly. You're still paying the rent.
Ago, right?
Exactly. You're still paying the monthly rent.
Absolutely.
Dangerfield's, if I'm not wrong, $25,000 a month rent.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
If you're not you're not doing a show 7 days a week, 3 shows a night.
Yeah, you gotta be cranking them out.
And now think about, I'm not a headliner. Who knows if I'll ever be a headliner or a setup guy, but the headliners now, if you're playing to a crowd of 30%, okay, does that mean your pay gets cut to 30%?
Well, you're going to demand more, aren't you? Or wouldn't?
Well, no. Let's say you get $100 for being a headliner at a show on a Thursday night. Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And let's say there's normally 100 people in the crowd.
Right.
But now there's only 30 people in the crowd because the capacity is now 30%, 33%. Can a promoter or a club owner, producer pay you the same $100 you normally get, or is he going to pay you $35?
No, good question. Yeah.
And I don't know the answer to that. $50. But now are you in a position to say, hey, I'm not taking $50 to be a headliner? Well, he'll get Joe Smith to be the headliner for $50.
Yeah.
So it's really professional comedians, professional dancers, professional singers, anybody in the entertainment industry, musicians. I feel so bad because
very
let's
much
face
impacted.
It, when things are great, things are great.
Yes.
And there's always a struggle to get better and better and be the next headliner or whatever the game. And a lot of these people that I know have contracts to go on cruise ships, national tours, headlining this club, headlining that club, and they're making a living. When the rug gets cut out under you, suddenly there's no cruise ships, there's no Vegas stuff, there's no Atlantic City stuff, there's no tours, there's no college tours.
No.
There are a lot of comedians out there doing college tours, making a lot of money, a lot of income. But cruise ships, as I said before, and it's just a life these people love. And now it's like basically it's like this: stop signing up, please. And even once they start coming back, as I said before, how can they pay these people what they're used to getting?
Right, because it's not 100% capacity for one.
No. Yeah. You can't blame the clubs.
No.
And then you can't blame the audience either. Now, is the audience a little bit leery too? Are
Yeah.
they going to want to spend the money? Because some of these people aren't working. There's such a
Right.
trickle down effect here
Yeah.
that, how do you ask somebody to come to a club and pay $10 to get in, 2 drink minimum, you
Right.
know, the transportation, the parking, whatever it may be. It's a night out,
Yeah.
which is great. You want to come out for the night, they want to spend $100, it's fantastic.
Right.
Under normal times, they wouldn't blink an eye about it.
Nope.
Think we'll definitely go do it. But now it's like, well, I really haven't worked in 3 months or
Yeah.
six
Got to
months,
think it through. Right.
exactly. And
Yeah.
again, what's the risk ratio, reward ratio again? Do I
Yeah.
risk myself going out, chancing myself getting, or whatever, and do I
Right.
take, some of these people would take mass transit to get there,
Yeah.
trains and buses.
Right.
That's why people lived on those things. Now that it's, I don't want to get on the train now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's changed so much of how not just the entertainment industry, but like you said, mass transportation. How do people commute now? That's a big part of the change as well. And even though society is slowly trickling to start to get back to some degree of normal, it's going to be at a limited capacity, and I think long term it's going to look different. We don't know, we don't have that crystal ball yet to know what it's going to look like, but there's going to be some added dynamic to it that will make it different from what it was before. That doesn't mean it's less enjoyable,
Right,
but that's what I feel, in my heart of hearts.
right, true.
Yeah.
True. Think
Yeah.
about it. If you're at a comedy club performing and everybody in front of you is wearing a mask,
Yeah.
you know, you
You
know,
can't see the nonverbals. You can't see the
exactly.
smile or when
Right.
they're about
So
to
you got
close
to you
down.
got to issue them masks with smiles on it.
That's right. That's a good
Club,
way. You can draw
XYZ
that
club,
energy.
whatever the club is. Okay, okay. Dangerfields, we put a big smile on it. Everybody gets a
That's right.
mask. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's
That's just it.
hilarious. So Bruce, I have one final question for you. Okay. And, and this is just, man, you have such a good heart and a good soul, and you really take, in my opinion, the wisest, um, most healthy approach to responding to something as devastating as COVID-19 has been over the past 13 months. So my question is this: could you offer some advice? Okay, offer some advice, uh, and I'm going to give you a choice of three different audiences. Okay, and you could pick which one. If you can offer some advice to either A, someone who is currently going through COVID, or B, someone who has gone through COVID and is now a long hauler, or C, just someone out of the general public who is just sick and tired of this whole pandemic and wants to go out and be in public and, concerts, amusement parks, restaurants, nightclubs. Um, Pick which audience and then tell me your advice.
Okay. I would probably pick the since I'm the long haul, I'd probably pick the long haul. Talk to them a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay to you know, there are three things you can do when if you get in a situation like this, you get a challenge. You can not accept it and not like it. You can accept it and not like it, but you can accept it and like it. Obviously, you don't want to accept and like the fact you have COVID. But
Right.
in fact, you can accept it and necessarily not like it. But it's okay to basically be a human being. There are days where I want to sit back and I'm not say cry, but just reflect back and say, why me? I want to cry. What did I do wrong? And things like that, beat
Right.
myself up.
Right. Right.
But it's okay to feel that. Whatever
Hmm.
you're feeling is normal,
Hmm.
you know, for you. So anybody tells you you're nuts, or you're crazy, or you're not feeling this, it's all anxiety, it's up in your head. No, you got to understand you're living within yourself, and you have to stand for yourself and do what you do. I call it healthfully selfish. Do the things
Yes.
that make you feel good,
Yes.
not at the expense of somebody else, of course,
Right.
but do the things that will work for you. If certain days I have to cut back and say, I just feel tired, I have to give into that. I'm not one to give into this necessarily,
Mhm.
but reality strikes sometimes and say, hey, yeah, as you get to a certain point in life, you got to accept things. You don't have to like them, but the fact that it's real.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's just, but this thing is messages across over to everybody. Basically, this
Yeah.
is a real disease. This ain't made up here. You know, when you're
It's no
walking in
joke.
my, no, when you're walking in my shoes or
Yeah.
somebody else's shoes that you see, you have an understanding how the impact of that. It's not just the personal impact; it's
Right.
how it affects everybody else. And if you can just support people, and I think I have a very good support network,
Mhm.
and I support people as well as much as possible. Um, Sometimes you got to keep that smiley face on, even though you don't want to smile,
Right.
because I just feel it's better not to beat yourself up and say, "Why is it happening to me?" Or everybody has tragedy and stuff that happens in their lives.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I'm angry. Let yourself be angry.
Yeah.
Let yourself be sad. Let yourself be happy that I've hopefully beaten this, or at least maintained myself well enough that I can function as a normal human being.
Right.
Have compassion to those who may be struggling more,
Right.
and give as much as you can to people, and hopefully you get that back. As I mentioned
Beautiful.
before, I have a support network, and I've supported other people that are who are going through trying times that are not COVID related.
Right. Right.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. You got to have that community, right? You
yeah.
have to. So, Bruce, that is excellent, excellent advice, man. I really, really appreciate that. And how can the listeners connect to learn of any upcoming shows you have virtually on Zoom?
I, I have a fan page, Bruce Lipsky Comedy,
Okay.
and it's hashtag you gotta laugh, YAGOTTALAFF.
Gotcha.
And also
Wonderful.
I'm on Facebook. I'm not a big Facebook person writing things, but you gotta laugh on my Facebook fan page. If you like my page, follow me. My shows are upcoming on there. I also
Okay.
have a website called brucecomedy.com,
Okay.
and my
Awesome.
shows and things are on there. The Road to Rediscovery is on there.
Wonderful. Hey, that's great. It's
Right,
good to
right.
know.
Yes, and once, in fact, the first interview we have is on there, so you can play it back from there.
Wonderful.
Once this interview gets put together, I will post it on my website as well. And this way, people want to listen to that who haven't heard it, and that'd be great. And some other things are on there as far as any upcoming dates, as far as shows. But some of the links I have on there are not active yet because I don't have the Zoom links or the ticket information.
Right.
When I say
That makes sense.
ticket information, basically all these are free. So it's not like it's,
Okay.
I'm not doing any shows that I know of right now that you have to pay to come on. If you do have to pay some show, maybe they're $5.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
it's not a lot of money, but most of the stuff I'm doing is free based. Maybe that's not the right word to use. Free basing.
I had a feeling you
Let's
were going
take
to
that.
say something
Okay.
like that.
Let's rewind that.
Rewind
Those
that, do a little
those are not
edit.
fee based. They're not fee based. Not free
Fee
based.
based, not free based.
Exactly.
Understood.
Exactly.
100%. Well,
Got the
Bruce, we're going to make sure that we put the links to your website, your fan page, and so forth on the episode show notes so that people can directly get to that and access that. They may not have the Zoom links right away, like you said, until the meeting room is
right.
created and it's
Of
scheduled,
course. Yeah.
but
Right.
they'll at least have the dates. They'll at least have the dates that you'll be performing.
Right. Right.
So, Mr. Bruce Lipsky, once again, my friend, I really, really appreciate us connecting again and getting an update on how you're doing, and much continued health and prosperity goes to you, my friend.
Thank you. God bless you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here again. As I said, I love you. I love what you're doing, and hopefully, I've helped some people
Well,
along
thank
the
you
way.
so much, man. And I love you as well, Bruce. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in and listening. And look, if you have a chance, please go to either Apple Podcast or Spotify or Libsyn, wherever you listen to your shows, and just give that 5-star review and rate, please. It would mean so much to me. And more importantly, if you know someone who is really struggling going through dark times and they feel like they're at the end of their rope, please, I ask you, please share this show with them so they know that there is always hope and they're not alone. The Road to Rediscovery, it's part of a movement, a revolution. And guess what? You are now part of it. Together, we're all roadies on this journey of life, and it sure feels good having you on the journey with me. Thanks again for listening. We'll chat again soon.
Thank you very much, everybody. Pleasure being here.
The Road to Rediscovery is an AJ Shark production.